So before we begin, it's just we have for this podcast we don't have any script. We don't know what the hell is gonna happen, but something interesting is gonna happen. Okay, so
Okay, so before we begin, Suparna, if you could just tell me about you, like how did you start?
sure,
Why do
sure,
you do
please,
this
please, please,
podcast?
yeah,
Something about
exactly.
your
Hmm.
previous
So
background, etc.
exactly. So basically, I'm a musician myself and the podcast
Yeah,
host for this. So like 4 years back, I started playing the guitar, and it took off fantastically. Been creating content on YouTube for like 2 years, which has picked off. So when I was like going through a really bad phase, you can say we all go. So I was thinking, okay, in all industries, in music, in art, sports, whatever it is, there's a lot of like gatekeeping. No one helps each other. Everyone talks about I'll help you, but no one actually comes, right? So I thought,
right,
okay,
right,
why not let's create a platform where I can have discussions with people who are wonderful, who have achieved so much, and people like that are willing to share their journey, their
right.
experiences, which indeed will help all the other listeners who listen to this podcast as well. So this was my entire
Okay,
initiative behind starting this one.
okay, interesting,
Yep, yep,
interesting.
fantastic,
Good, yeah.
fantastic. All right. So
Yes.
hello to the good people over the internet. Today we have with us none other than Mr. Ritam Bhatnagar. Yes, you heard that right. He's the founder of IFP, formerly the India Film Project. Yes. He's also the ex-global shaper at World Economic Forum. He's also been a TEDx speaker. Not to forget, he's a Lego artist and building India's largest Lego city. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time out to join, Ritam sir.
Thanks, Suparna. And I think our earlier conversation with before you introduced was itself an icebreaker. So I think we
Ah,
can I'm super excited, already prepared to be in a good conversation with you. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely, fantastic.
Like you said, to just build on it, you know, like I've personally grown in a way where I've grown through stories of people around me, and typically hearing stories of people who have overachieved or achieved something. And I think that's the only source of motivation I have in my life. So there's no other way you can motivate me unless you tell me saying, okay, this is the person and this is what they did. And then I'm like, wow, and thankfully they shared it with the world. And that's what makes the
Mhm.
difference, right? So I think uh, whatever way, I don't know who wants to hear my story or things around me, but
I
whatever
want.
way it helps, but even if it's, if example, changes life of one of your listener, or it probably impacts in a positive way where the person says, this is good, like this is going to take me to next level. I think that would be the end motive of this conversation.
For sure, absolutely. And I couldn't control my excitement. I just sent you the entire anchor spotlight thing. I was like, Ritam sir, I won this one. See, and I was like, oh my god, I've sent it.
That's
So
so good,
when
yeah.
I
But
first,
yeah, yeah, tell me, tell me.
yeah, so when I first got the email, I was like, wait. I need to breathe. I need to, look at it. What the hell? I won this. My podcast won this, and I'm like, okay, wow, fantastic it is. So then I
Yeah.
thought, okay, I was
You,
like searching. Mhm.
you were in which category?
I
Category
was in
two.
the third category, 30 to 45 minutes
30,
one.
30 to 45 minutes. Okay, okay.
Mhm. So long stories are for me.
So
Mhm.
I just recently produced a video using Lego bricks. So I used
I
43,000
saw
Lego
that.
bricks to
Yeah.
create Lego dominoes. Yes. And that is something that people haven't attempted earlier in India or Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So it was, I think, one of its kind of a experiment that I did last week. And I was just recovering from dengue. So
Oh,
I
ha.
had the least of energies. My doctor told me take good bed rest, don't go to office for more than 2 hours. And I ended up shooting for 3 days continuously, close to 16 hours a day. And I
Oh
had to
my
build this
God.
entire setup, and then you just get one attempt in which it has to fall. If it doesn't fall,
Ah.
then you are like up for toss.
Mhm.
So after 2.5 days of making the entire set, I had to, the moment I had to, push the first domino to fall, I was like so nervous, and I was like, if this falls in exactly the way I want it to be, it will not just save me a lot of health and time and energy, but probably this would be the proudest thing for me in 2022. That I
Mm.
would have more proud than what IFP I would have put up this year, because I'm like, this is like a personal achievement. You
Ha
don't
ha
have a
ha
team,
ha
you're
ha.
just trying to do something on your own.
Ha ha.
And
Exactly.
we put the video 2 days back, and I was like very blank. I was like, oh, nice, people are liking it. And then this morning I woke up and I was like, wow, I created a masterpiece, and no one is realizing that's okay, but I am realizing that.
Yeah.
Probably 30 years down the line, I am going to look at it and I am going to be like, dude, at in your 30s, you really did something which was
Uh-huh.
unusual, which is good. And I'm not an artist, so I've just been catching up this entire idea of doing something for
Hmm.
myself, doing
Hmm.
creating something which was my hobby, which has now become a kind of profession. People recognize me, brands recognize me as a Lego artist as much as they recognize me as a founder of IFP. So I think that's a good thing, good space to be in.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
So
So I
that
just.
I think that
Mhm.
realization stuck in the morning, and then for the first half of the day, I was like, wow, I just did something so cool. I've been just opening up my Instagram, crazily checking the video, the kind of reactions I've been getting, and I've been just getting so happy.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, I've also been very slow at my work today. So yes, that's how the day is.
The great achievement you had the very morning, and that's not an easy task. I mean, 43,000 Lego pieces. I mean, holy shit.
Oh, I have got 350 kgs of Legos. So that should be somewhere around 3.5 lakh plus Lego pieces.
Oh my god.
But for this project, I had to get Lego pieces, especially like I had to get them imported. And Lego doesn't sell directly in India. So how I have to do it
Hmm.
is I have to place an order online, then it goes to Canada to my ex-roommate, the roommate with whom I grew from nursery to post
Oh.
graduation, and then that guy was coming to India. So and this was close to 42 kgs of Lego which is coming in. So he decides to help me. So he puts and he has this 55 kg luggage allowance, right? And out of that
Uh-huh.
42 kg, he just allocates to me. He's coming to India for 2 months, and he just gets his stuff in the remaining 13 kgs, and he brings it down. And I had to get exactly the brand color because we were celebrating Max Verstappen, so I had to get exactly the colors for Red Bull. So I think uh, I now have a from 300 it has reached to a 350 kg ka library that I have with Legos. Yes,
So your house is half Lego.
my house is almost quarter Lego, not
Quarter
house.
Lego. Okay.
I
Okay.
I am moving to a new house just because I wanted a Lego room because there was no space. So every day I
Hmm.
used to like have this fight happening at office, at home, which was like, hey, we don't have space to put any new thing. Like there's so much Lego inside. The moment you enter my house, you just have to like take care of not stepping on a Lego. There's so much of it, and then now what has started happening is things have started falling apart. So some of my sets which have been lying for 4 5 years, so the pieces started coming out, right? So I have to
Uh-huh.
be like I've told my maid to be very careful. Even if she finds a single piece, I told her it is going to cost me $10. So just pick it up and put it at a safe space.
So
So
they
my
have a
house has
great
become like,
responsibility.
oh, yeah, yeah. All my rooms are Lego right now. My storeroom is full of Lego. My office, my entire car dicky is full of Lego. I put like so much. I am in such a crunch of space. That's my number one thing. Every morning I wake up and I'm like, what kind of house do I live in? And then the second thought is, oh, this is actually my hobby taking a lot of space.
Oh, great thought of the day.
Yes. But
Fantastic.
I am a genuine believer, Suparna, that one needs to have a hobby. Like,
For sure.
and typically for me, I'm very lucky that I always wanted to be a kid. I never wanted to grow up like everyone else. And
Mhm.
my hobby is something which keeps me very young. So, unlike a lot of hobbies, which of course are of your age, my hobby is something which is very kid like for me. And the kind of people who reach out to me on Instagram, the kind of people who meet me at different labor related things are those younger kids. These are basically between 3 to 15, 16 year olds. And suddenly come, hey, uncle, I saw that thing that you made. And I'm like, wow, I would be very happy if my target audience is between 3 to 10. I don't have to care
Uh,
about their purchasing power. I don't have to sell them anything. I'm just happy that these people are so innocent. And if they appreciate, that's the best kind of appreciation you can get. Because
mhm.
for them, the world is very black and white, and they still, when they say, "Hey, this is white," and you wanted to be heard it that way, I think that's one of the best ways someone can actually appreciate you. So
Absolutely.
yes, I think for me, luckily, the hobby part was really, really critical, and especially during the COVID times. I developed new hobbies, but to be able to continue a hobby that makes me feel kid every time I open a box,
Uh,
and probably takes me time travels me back 15 20 years. And I feel like a 20 or like a 10-year-old Rhythm who's sitting inside a room with his toys playing endlessly for 6, 8 hours on a Sunday. So if your hobby can make you feel like that, I think that's a bliss. And of course,
Uh-huh,
it
for
also
sure.
pays me now. So that's a good thing because I also get paid for such assignments. So
Uh-huh.
I tell people that I've got one of the best use of hobbies that anyone could have done ever.
Mhm. Yep, yep. That's inspiring. So the burning question I have, even before I started to reach you out and disturbed you a lot on WhatsApp, is how did you start doing all of the things you're doing? How did you become like this? Like, were you like this, an inventor, an entrepreneurial mindset from the very start, or like what has it been?
In fact, I was completely opposite of what this could be. I used to be
Okay.
that shy school kid whose only achievement in his life would have been that his dad is a astrophysicist and a scientist who has built one of the largest telescopes in India. I think that
Oh,
was my only achievement. Like I used to only bell that cat all the time. I used to just go out and talk about it to everyone. And probably, I was very science inclined since the beginning. So I remember when I was, I think, 10-year old. When I was 2 year old, we had the first PC that we got at our home, and
hmm.
this is 1990. I'm talking about, way back when personal computers were not a thing. So my dad
Wow.
got a imported computer, and it was the only computer in the city. So the mayor and the municipal commissioner used to come down to our home, and the press used to come to see what a computer looks like, and they used to make me sit on the computer and then take pictures. And next day they used to put it out on the local newspaper saying that okay, the first computer of the
Uh,
city is here. And I think that way it was a great exposure because I started using Windows 3.1 or Windows 3, I think, way back, and I still have those floppies with my games back then. So for me, it was a very unusual childhood because, in a way, when most of my friends were still having a very common life, I was doing something which was not something that they were doing at that time. So I realized that hey, I am little different. I am trying to probably not merge with the larger crowd, and that realization stayed with me for a good long time. I think for good 15 years, till my end of
wow.
college, I realized that I have been, by whatever fortunes, I've been gifted to be a slightly different person because, of course, the way my father made sure that my childhood was always, by the time I was 10-year old, I started editing videos and I started doing Photoshop, and I used to take black and white pictures of my family, my great grandfather's photos, and then I used to color them and
Wow.
learn all those things. By the time I was, I think, 12-year old, I learned Visual Basic end to end, and I used to create small softwares. I used to create calculators and notepads and all those
Wow.
things in Visual Basic, and that always remained with me. So typically, when I used to go to school, I used to find people who were in the best of the science fairs. They were creating those volcanoes with, typically
That would
baking
splurge
soda,
out.
and right, and they were creating electricity from potato. But I had a different, because I had a different setup at my home. I used to create electronic circuits, and I used to create
Mhm.
things with microprocessors. I used to create something with telescope. So I used to create things which were probably always putting me on a different league. I'm not saying in the sense that better than them, but probably always made me feel that hey, I am different because most
Mhm.
people were doing A and I used to do B. So when I was in sixth standard and they introduced computer in our school, and it was like 1997, I think, and computers were a big thing. So we had a computer lab which came in, and most people were learning typing tutor, and I
Mhm.
realized that I was already typing at 80 words per minute by then. So
Whoa.
my computer sir, and I think my computer sir was first person who probably made me feel that hey, you are different and that is for better. So he
Mhm.
told me, I think in the first few weeks, he came to me and said, hey, you already know what you're doing. So instead of being just another student, why don't you start teaching? So I will teach 30 people, you teach the rest of 30 people, which was a big thing
Wow.
because suddenly I am in my sixth standard and I am teaching my classmates typing tutor. And there used to be this software called Logo. I don't know if you know
No,
Logo.
no,
I
probably
don't
I was
think
not
so.
born
Yeah,
then.
yeah. So Logo used to be a programming software. So there was a
Hmm.
turtle, and you had to give it a command saying that move 45
Oh,
forward. So you had
okay.
to write that
Mhm.
command in a coding language, right?
Mhm.
So I used to do all of that. And when I came into seventh, my computer sir again, he was like, "You already know editing. You already know PowerPoint and Word and everything. So you're planning a school magazine. So why don't you become the editor, where your job would also be to design it, not just become like do the editing stuff and find stories and decide what is to be done, but also design it end to end. So it used to be a 16-page tabloid that used to come in. Of course, it used to be once a year thing. But for me, it was a huge opportunity because it of course gave me a lot of idea about how what kind of things are special that need to get featured and what kind of things are normal that shouldn't get featured.
Wow.
It told me a lot about how to edit and place things. It told me a lot about colors and fonts and all those things. And more than that, it gave me a very huge confidence that I was doing something that most of my classmates were not doing back then, or probably were not inclined to do back then, right? So for me, I think that was uh, a point in my life where that entire intangible thing saying that, hey, I am different became suddenly tangible. And I realized, hey, I am probably doing something really different and it's helping me in my life. So let me be this way. And over the next couple of years, and I used to be the shy guy, I studied with almost same 120 people from nursery till 12th, but there were close
Mhm.
to 70% of classmates I never spoke to. Whatever.
Ah,
Now I laugh at it because I am right now the most social person in my school batch. I am the one
yes.
who's connected with almost 100 people out of 120. But back then, and most of my schoolies, I spoke to them after my post graduation for the first
Mm,
time. When
mm,
Facebook came in, I started writing them messages, and they never expected me to write a message, right? And I suddenly they receive a message from a classmate who's never spoken in the school. Then I tell them saying that, hey, share your number. And then I used to call them and then tell them saying that, hey, this is what I am doing. What are you up to? Let's be in touch. So for
mm.
me, like I said, one turning point was my seventh standard when I became an editor. Another turning point would be so I wanted to always become a scientist. It was
Oh,
same logic. My dad is a scientist. I want to become a scientist.
I heard this from
Uh,
your TEDx talk that you wanted to be a
right.
scientist.
And yes, and when I entered the first year of my graduation, and I scored very poorly in my 12th standard because I was never great at academics, like very average, always 60-65% wala kid. And when I scored in my 12th standard, I scored 49%. Like it was horrible.
Wow. Mm.
And the only college I was getting was St. Xavier's. I was getting in BSc, so no engineering for me. All of my friends were either in engineering or dental or medical. I by not by choice, but I think by the force of nature, I couldn't make it to any of those fields. So I said, okay, the college looks very promising because it's Xavier. Xavier will have its own culture, and I'll go there. But of course, the course was a BSc in electronics.
Oh.
But electronics was something that I loved. So not that I was not happy about it, just that it was not a B Tech, it was a BSc. So the first day of the college, I go inside and I was living in hostel in the campus itself, and I somehow decided very cluelessly, I decided saying that, hey, if I've come to this place, I've come here for a reason. I don't want to go out from this place the same kid I was in my school. So for the
Uh,
next 3 years, I did everything in my life that I could. I took up leadership positions. I scored best that I could. I used to be one of the rankers in the university. I was the head of the entire student committee of the college. I used to represent students at various national and international forums. I used to act in plays. I used to get sponsorships for the festival. I used to organize the youth festival. I used to be part of whatever sports my hostel team used to play. So I did every possible thing that could. I started my own t-shirt ka business. I started my own basic consulting and everything that I could learn. I took those 3 years at the place, saying that okay, these 3 years I try to become exactly the version of myself that I should have been rather than
mm.
I could not have been. So I think that helped a lot. And those 3 years for me were like suddenly a game changer. So when I met a lot of my classmates after those 3 years, they were like, "You're not the kind of person we ever imagined you could be."
And
And
that's
it
a
was
good
not a
sign.
minor change. Yeah, and it was a drastic change because
Mm.
instead of being, I remember when I completed my school, I used to be this very underconfident, shy kid. And most
Mm.
of the times I didn't speak to people because I was very underconfident about things. I knew I was different.
Mhm.
I was like, in my head, I was like, I am
हाँ,
better, or
वो क्या
probably I am
सोचेंगे?
different.
हाँ 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 हाँ.
But फिर भी I am not like them. So probably there was some distinguishment which
हाँ
is there.
हाँ.
And that remained with me for good 7-8 years. So not that it was a small period. So of course, it would have affected me back then. But at college, I got this opportunity to excel. I said everything that I could be. Academics, I'll become the best. Be it labs, I'll be the best person. In fact, be it starting a business, be it managing college ka things, I'll be the person the principal should call the first person when they need
Wow.
help. So I became that kind of a person in my college, and
How
probably
many
first year
hours
again,
did
I
you
like
work upon building all of these?
I think all my time, because I was a hostelite, and this is the
Mhm.
time when we never had smartphones, right? This is
Ah,
2005 I'm talking about. We just had those Nokia dabbas.
ha, ha, ha.
So you had all the time. I just had a radio in my room, which was my only entertainment. Apart from that, I used to wake up at 7 o'clock. From 7 till 11 o'clock in the night, that I had good close to 16, 17 hours. I used to make sure that I'm not wasting a single minute in things that people usually do in college. So I was not just hanging out. I was not going to watch films. I was not going chilling out and having random street food and all those things. I made sure that I was, and neither I was like reading in libraries and studying and trying to become the best. I just said I'll do everything and without wasting any minute in those 16 hours. I'll just make sure that I'm doing things instead of trying to excel at one thing. So I
Mhm.
started doing a lot of things, and those 3 years, I think I consciously took a decision that I didn't want to become a scientist anymore because probably I was a better management person or as someone who was better at marketing skills, right? So I probably that's where I took that entire call and said, "Chalo MBA karte hain." That's the natural thing everyone
Oh,
does.
ah,
So I opted for CAT, and while my college was going on, I was also preparing for CAT for good 1.5 years. So I also had my CAT ka coaching every day in morning from 7 to 8 a.m. So I
ah.
also remember I had to make sure that while all of this was happening, I was also going to at least attempt a great CAT in 2008. And I did great at CAT. I got good 98 or some percentile that came out of it.
Oh.
And of course, I think, but for me, it for the first time made me exactly the way I am right now. So probably if I have to trace that right now, what I've been doing, a good reason of it would be my college and the post college years and then post graduation years. That's when I got the confidence that probably even if I don't do a job or I don't take up a job, I can still do something. And right now it sounds very easy. You have all the internet and all the Gen Z people. I'm just so envy them because the kind of opportunities they get. But 2008, 2010, they were barely an opportunity.
Yeah.
Things were opening up, but because there was no internet, just I remember the first day of my MBA, I told the professor was asking everyone saying that what do you want to do after MBA? And someone was saying, I want to earn a six-figure and a seven-figure salary. Someone was saying, I want to become a vice president. Someone wanted to become CEO. I just stood up and said, I don't want to take a placement. I want to start something on my own. On the first day, I just went out and said
Wow.
that. And I think now in retrospect, I don't know where did I get that confidence because those words held me by them. So for next 2 years, I couldn't sit for any placement. In spite of some really great opportunities coming in, I was like, yeah, this is the kind of job I want to do. And then I was like, oh, first day I told people I don't want to take up a job. So now I'm stuck because I can't take a job. So I'll have to do
Ah,
something of my own. But
ah.
that confidence that I could do something of my own, I think these are like a lot of cumulative experiences that just drove me into doing something of my own. And then once you are confident, things start falling in place. I think most of the times people when they're wanting to do something of their own is that they lack confidence. Not
Mhm.
that people are not having great plans or not that plans cannot be changed to mold become better. Just that when you don't have confidence, everything seems to fall apart. When you have confidence, I think you just know that even if it falls apart, I'll be able to take them better together.
Ah,
So I
ah.
think that's how it all started. So from a 2-year-old kid with the first visual of computer in front of his eyes to someone who's right now making thousands of people, become better
Yes.
at their creative fashion. I think
Yes. Yes.
that's
Yes.
largely what
Yes.
it has been.
Inspiring the entire India, youth of India. That's for sure.
I wouldn't
Wow.
say entire, but I would say yeah, some small part of
Hmm.
self-motivated people. Yes.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. For sure. How did you start IFP, and where did this idea came from? Like, okay, I can start something like the India Film Project.
So, India Film Project happened very, very, very randomly. So, I was working on multiple things after like I said, after my post graduation, I told people I'll not sit for interviews, and I saw a couple of my friends taking like crazy packages and everything. But I have to do something of my own. So, I was working on a project where I was planning to take touring cinema into villages. The old
Oh,
time touring talkies that used to be there, where
touring
you
talkies,
take a
yeah.
truck to you take a truck to a village, then showcase a film. So I was working on that project and I was really bullish about it. I was looking at investors for it, and one of my investors came to me and said, "Take this much money, go out and pilot it. If it becomes successful, great. If it doesn't, then probably work on the next idea." So I remember it was like May, June, and I was also working on Gujarati film back then. I was working on the first urban Gujarati film that had to come out. So I was 21-year-old, not much into my kitty, and this was very ambitious plan. Like I said, if I can get touring talkies, even if I can get one truck running, and if I can get say 30 villages empowered every week through this, I can create a great model for the villagers and also for the advertisers who want to take their products to
Hmm.
the village. And probably I can start with one truck, but going from one truck to 300 truck will not take a lot of time.
Yeah.
What if I can become that number one person who's marketing in the villages, and every brand which wants to go into rural India has to come to me. So that's how I used to think back then. And so I did a pilot for good 35, 40 days. I stayed in villages and I used to showcase films there. I got a truck on rent, I got projector on rent, sound speaker, and all those things. And every day I used to show different content. Someday Hollywood films, someday dubbed Bollywood films, someday
Everything
regional
by
films. And I
yourself,
used
or you had a team?
everything. I had two helpers who were helping me, but yes, right from promoting, right from going into villages and announcing on the speaker, right from digging the holes to put your tent
Hmm.
poles and then covering and then doing the projector. Largely, we're just three people who were doing it. Out of one was
Wow.
a driver, another was a helper, and I was the third person who was running it. Because we didn't get the kind of resources or money to do a large scale pilot. Basically, we
Hmm.
could only spend 3,000 per village, and within
Hmm.
3,000 we had to take care of the projector rent, the fuel, the truck rent, the fees for those two people who are helping me, the food,
Hmm.
everything had to be taken care of it. And we said let's do at least 30 to 40 villages for us to get an idea, saying that how do we evolve, right? So typically
Hmm.
from May to June I did this, and then monsoon time pe you can't run this activity, so July onwards
Hmm.
I was sitting very navra. And that is when I remembered that a lot of my room partners in Bombay were filmmakers, were film students, and these people always had a issue, saying that they always used to make plans. They used to make, they used to do narrations and have scripts and plan about shooting, but they never shot a film. So I
Oh.
always had this thing in the corner of my head saying that if there is a way of getting filmmakers together where they could meet like-minded people or new set of people and they could create something new within a given time, say, why not do that? So that's how I said, "Abhi jab tak monsoon hai, anyways, this touring talk is not going to happen.
Ah,
So
you
let
can
me
utilize that time.
So
Hmm.
let me go and announce and do something like this." So very randomly one evening I got this thought saying that why don't I create a 50-hour filmmaking challenge? Because I was operating from Ahmedabad back then, I called it Ahmedabad Film Project, put it online, created a website overnight using whatever HTML skills I had, a 10, 12 page website. And made a Facebook group and added every possible person in my friend list into that Facebook group and announced saying that, okay, we are doing a 50-hour filmmaking challenge. And I think 3 o'clock in the night, finally, when I did all the announcement, I went home. I said this was like a very random, impromptu thing that I did. Next morning, I come to office at 11 o'clock, and there's this one guy standing outside my office, and he's like, "This is my registration form. This is my fees. I want to participate." I was like, 6 hours, 7 hours back, I just published something like this, and within 10 hours, I've already got someone who's interested. So this might be something which might be of interest. That's why people are also probably participating
Hmm.
in this. And next couple of days, we started getting a lot of registrations. So the first AFP happened as it was called back then, and it was successful. 600 people from some 19 cities who traveled down, because
Wow.
it was compulsory for people to travel down to Ahmedabad to participate. And
Hmm.
people took that much of an effort that they traveled from whatever different cities, specifically with their team on their own expense to participate, which was a good milestone for us to achieve. And because like I did it as a break activity, so I thought this is it. Probably I never wanted to do it second time. I just did it because I had those 3 4 months ka gap in my head. I was still making the largest touring talkies or the largest touring cinema distribution chain in the world
Wow.
in rural India.
Wow.
So that is what still is there in my mind. And then we are still working on touring talkies, trying to secure fund. Meanwhile, I am also producing a Gujarati film, and that film comes out and suddenly becomes a blockbuster. So I was the EP there, executive producer, and I was also distributing that film. So suddenly that film becomes the first Gujarati film which is changing the course of entire Gujarati film industry. So for the first time, a film gets released in a multiplex. People pay and go and watch, and it looks exactly like how Bollywood films look like. So that is happening, and I'm consulting a couple of film festivals and helping them program. So I'm making decent freelancer fees out of it. And then one day, I think on our office landline, there's a call which comes up where someone is asking, things that when the next IFP is happening. And we are
Oh.
like, someone is expecting this to happen again. We never thought we'd be doing it again. So my intern says, "Sir, last time it was very much fun. Let's do it this year also." So I was in a dilemma. For 1 week, I just took time to think, saying that if I do it second time, then I'll have to do it every year. Because
Hmm.
once you can do and you can be like, hey, okay, I'm done. But the moment
Hmm.
you do something twice, then you have to do it 3 times, 4 times, five
Ha
times. Then
ha
it
ha.
becomes a regular affair. And if you
Hmm.
don't do it, then people just go out and like it
Hmm.
becomes a
Hmm.
thing where people tell you, यार 2 बार किया फिर इनसे हुआ नहीं
Ha
kind
ha
of
ha
thing.
ha.
So I just then the second time it had to go big, it had to grow big also. So so then we became a little serious and we said, "Chalo, it's time. Let's put a little more effort." And we suddenly got 1,200 people coming in.
Oh.
Then it kind of settled, saying that okay, now this could become an annual activity. But for us, IFP back then was still not a business. It was
Hmm.
still a very hobby kind of a thing that we used to do because in my
Hmm.
mind my main business was still going to be producing films and running a touring talkies. So I saw myself as a guy who was going to be in the business of cinema, and I was really inspired the way Siddharth Roy Kapoor was shaping his career back then. So like I want to become that person who's having a distribution and also production thing. And I think that's how it unfolded. Yeah, I think, and then because second year we got participation from many more number of cities, so we said now it's not limited to Ahmedabad. Let's call it India. So third year we
Oh.
just changed the Facebook page name to India, and we said, "Chalo, now it's India Film Project, and it's going to
And what
happen
was the
every year." And
what was the feeling inside of you? What was happening?
back then, like I said, because this was for me still an activity which in my head was not a business, and whatever, so example, the first two IFPs, whatever money we could get out of sponsors and registration was all spent into making the festival. So we were neither earning out of it, we were neither getting any
Hmm.
fame or anything out of it. So for us, it was just an activity which was happening for sake of happening. Like there was no purpose to the activity. Until third year, when we did it and called it India Film Project, that's when the purpose came in. Then we said, hey, you know what? This activity is helping people get together. This activity is getting people to work with new people who are eventually becoming teams, and then they're creating even better content. And internet started coming in, YouTube started coming in, then broadband started coming in. So I said,
Hmm.
now this is the time when something like this needs to grow. And in fourth year onwards, we for the first time thought of IFP as a place where we could also make money. In the sense, take care
Hmm.
of our own costs, take care of team's cost, office rents, etc. So I think fourth year is the first time that we thought of IFP as a business. Before that, the first 3 years, I think IFP was still in my head very much like a hobby or a side activity that was keeping us busy for 2 months a year, guaranteed. Yes.
I don't know what to say. You left me speechless and all the others as well. I mean, what was the size of the team back then when you didn't thought that okay until IFP three season three? What was the size of the team when you were any making any money?
So, yeah, so the first year I was alone. I had two interns and rest of all my room partners who used to help me, room partners and best friends who used to help me. The second year I had, I think, four interns and of course my best friends and room partners helping me. The first employee that we got at IFT was in 2015. So for the first 4 years we had no employees. Like fifth year is when we got an employee. Up till then we had interns who used to work with us for good 1 2 year long project.
Hmm.
So like in a way it was fun. And for every IFP, people used to come together. So my best friends used to come to help, and exactly they knew what was their part. So one of my best friends was responsible for all the video and photo. One of them was responsible
Hmm.
for all the decor part. One of them was responsible for travel and logistics. So they used to take up their own roles. And till date, in even the last IFP that happened last month in October
Hmm.
2022, almost 50% of my team was my best friends and my old room partners and my school friends and my cousins who
Wow.
take it up. You won't believe every IFP stage that runs till date is all my cousins and my best friends running it. We don't have
Wow.
professionally trained people, but these people have been doing it for 12 years now.
So
So
they
you
are
don't
already
have to teach them.
trained.
You're already trained. They exactly know. They come on the day of the festival in the morning. You just have to tell them things that what stage is allocated to them. They take up the responsibility so smoothly. And I think for me, one of the best part is that for me, IFP personally is also a great reunion because that's where I get to meet people, my loved ones who travel down from multiple cities to Mumbai just to make it happen. So I think, and that's not a small deal. When you are running a festival,
Yeah.
which still has a huge part of your team which is linked to your childhood.
Yeah.
These
Exactly.
people literally
Exactly.
grew up with me. We used to go in the
Nostalgia.
same autos. Yeah, yeah. We used to like eat from the same tiffin, and today these people are helping me make IFP better.
Wow.
Is like another level of
हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है.
yeah, हो
This
रहा
is
है ये.
happening.
So, yeah, so I think uh, uh, for me there was no feeling as such for the first couple of years, but
Hmm.
but yes, there was some seriousness that we didn't want to spoil something like this. Like we didn't want to do it, we didn't want to close it, we didn't want to randomly take a decision that would hamper it, because at least way back in those times there was no other platform which was operating at this level, wanting to
Ah.
do or solve this kind of a problem. So we became one of the earliest platforms which was even acknowledging a problem like this and also creating a solution for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, exactly. Wow. So, when did your what was your first biggest success that you got as an independent entrepreneur yourself?
I think that is still to come. I
And
don't think so. There's
this is
something.
the problem with every entrepreneur they have. Like, nahi aane wala hai, nahi aane wala hai. And meanwhile, you just look back and see you have achieved so much till now. It all compiles up.
I think it stops feeling that way. So I was just telling one of my team members a couple of days back. I was telling
Mhm.
them that the total budget of my first IFP, you know, was less than the printing budget of of my recent IFP. You know, matlab the or I'd say that the cost of carpeting one single hall in the 12th IFP was more than the total budget of first IFP.
Oh, wow.
Do you understand? So I was telling them saying that and as long as you are growing, you will never feel, no entrepreneur will ever feel saying that they've hit a point of their large success. When you
Mhm.
become stagnant, that's when you start looking at those points. Because when you are growing, you
Exactly.
always know that there's something better which is going to happen. And you're
Exactly.
going to
Hmm.
create a bigger milestone. Probably 5 years down the line, we might be having the same conversation, and ISP might be happening in 5 different continents. You never know where the
You'll be
ship is
calling from
headed.
Russia.
Not Russia probably, but you can say Sweden, next to Russia. I'll
Okay.
be from Sweden.
You'll be calling me from, hey, you remember? I'm like, yeah, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So there's no milestone as such. But
Mhm.
yeah, of course, couple of things that have like been engraved with me for a longer time as an entrepreneur is that the first time. So I used to also run another startup called Where, and Where used to be a geo location algorithm, which was one of its kind, which got incubated at IIM Ahmedabad way back
Wow.
in 2013.
That
So while I was running,
WWHERE, the double W.
yes, yes.
Oh,
So that algorithm was meant to connect physical locations into digital locations. So
okay.
which meant that like everyone's own Twitter handle or Instagram handle, you could have your where handle, and your where handle is your physical location. So you say where is Suparna home? You know, where dot is slash Suparna home. So that becomes
Ah,
your postal address. So instead of saying I live in 3048 XYZ society. Instead of that, you just create a where ID, and it is machine understandable, which means instead of entering your entire address in Amazon and your delivery boy getting very confused where that particular society or bungalow or flat is, they exactly have your digital coordinates. So they can do
wow.
route planning, they can optimize their tracks, and a lot of things that we were trying to do in 2013. And in 2015, we raised one of the largest rounds of seed funding for any startup in that
Mhm.
domain. So I think for
Mhm.
me personally, I think that was one milestone that I'll always remember, because uh, I, being a non-tech guy, having no co-founder and being able to create a tech startup which was raising funds and valued at multiple crores way back in
Mhm.
2013, 14, 15 was, and being incubated at IIM Ahmedabad amongst 5 or 10 companies that they incubate every year. For me, I think personally that was one milestone that I definitely I think I had. With IFP, of course, yes, milestones are going to come.
uh, what was the as you said, you were a non-tech guy, but you already knew like coding and simple languages like HTML and
So I
JavaScript.
understand, yes. Yeah, yeah. So abhi ka bhi IFP ka entire website, if you go, is coded by me. So if you go to
Oh,
ifp.world, I code
uh-huh.
every line of that website till date.
I have
It's like an
browsed the
hobby for me.
entire website.
Yeah, yeah. So everything is coded by me, and I can also tell you all the errors which are still present on the website. Couple of
Oh.
buttons which don't work, I can actually tell you that. So, I, because I used to code at a very early age, I had this mindset of how things work. You know, so I
Mhm.
exactly knew saying that what is possible and what is not possible in coding. So no one can come to me and tell me saying that ये तो हो नहीं सकता or this will take 3 months. At least those kind of things I can easily figure, and I can create logics and tell you saying, okay, this if you do this like this, it can happen. I don't know much coding except for HTML and CSS and some part of JavaScript that I know right now. Apart from that, most of the things I've never coded, so I am completely out of touch. But for me to understand how an SSL works, or for me to understand how probably my currently MariaDB SQL connects to my EC2, I can do all those things very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I think which is a good thing. Sometimes I don't talk a lot about it, but my team may, whenever a new intern joins and they have some website changes, they usually come to me and they're like, hey, who is our website agency who will code all these changes into it? I have a list of changes. I'm like, I am the agency. Give it to me after office hours.
Here,
Typically, I
here.
go home. Yeah, yeah. I just have my dinner and then I start coding. So for me, in a way, it also I realized not that I don't want to spend on someone to do it. Of course, I hate the logistics of working with a third party agency, telling them changes, then they're taking a week to do it, etc. While, but more than that, I think it keeps me very close to the product.
Yeah.
When I am coding entire website, I know exactly what thing is happening when, what thing is happening where,
Mm-hmm. You know
what
the
are the things
vision.
we're talking about. You know the vision, and I think that that activity is a very, it's like a very recreational activity for me, and it's also a
Hmm.
very realigning activity for me every year. So I can
Mm-hmm.
communicate what I would want to much easily than working with a third party agency.
When did you join as the ex? When did you join as the global shipper, and how did it come to you, World Economic Forum? And for people who don't know, would you just kindly tell them what is first and foremost the World Economic Forum, because a lot of people don't know, and the second is how did you become the shaper in that? And that's an interesting question I had for a long time.
So World Economic Forum, the Global Shaper program is a program where they're finding people who are between the 20 and 30 who are wanting to move the world one day at a time. So typically people who believe in the vision, saying that collectively we can come together and make a difference. Now,
Mm.
difference is not limited to a sector. You could make a difference in environment, in society, in traditions, in culture, and business, in livelihood. So there are multiple
Economic
spaces in which you
status and
could
all of that.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
you could make a dent in the society. So that's what global shapers are meant for. So
Mm-hmm.
global shapers are something which are selected. So there is a curator who goes through multiple profiles. There is no application form. So they typically
Mm-hmm.
find you. You don't have to apply
Yeah.
anywhere. So one day
Mm-hmm.
I get a call from someone saying that, okay, I am a global shipper and I'm clueless. I know what World Economic Forum is and how World Economic Forum is, of course, one of the largest entities that connects a lot of trade
Yes.
lobbies and
Yes. Uh-huh.
nations as well. But I'm clueless about what more does World Economic Forum do, and of course, it's like something that is so heavy as a word that I'll be like, oh, this looks like a very sophisticated thing to be a part of.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then global paper I was completely clueless into. So I get a call and they saying that, hey, you have been making a lot of difference in the creative universe,
Uh-huh.
and we would want to have someone like you use your abilities into also making a difference in society. So not just limited to what you are doing as a work, but also what you can do to the society through your skills. So become a part of Global Shipper. And of course, there's an interview which is followed and then it gets selected as a part of it. So
Mm-hmm.
as a part of Global Shippers for good 2 years, and it gave me a lot of insight about things. And I was 22 back then. So to be honest, I
Oh.
don't think so. I contributed my 100% into it because I was also struggling, juggling many balls, trying to put touring talkies together as well, and a lot of things. But I think it gave me a very early insight into things that had to matter. So
Mm-hmm.
later, at some point, those were basic things that, for example, one of the projects that we were working at as a global shipper was how do we make reusable pens sustainable? Like instead of people throwing them away in dustbin, could we create products out of it? Not that I was leading that project. It was just one of the projects that my that global shapers were doing together. But a couple of years later, when we were doing IFP at the festival in Bombay, it led me to make it a sustainable festival. I said, hey, and this is I'm talking about 2016 when
360.
sustainability was still a very new buzzword
Mm-hmm.
for most of the festivals. So we said, hey, let's make a festival sustainable because when I was a part of Global Shaper, this is exactly what we wanted to do in other
Mm-hmm.
people's lives. When I've got an opportunity to actually influence a lot of people's lives, why not? right now
Why
do
not?
it,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
ever since then, we have been trying our best, pushing. Of course, no festival, though what they claim can be 100% sustainable,
Yeah.
because you're always going to leave a lot of carbon footprint. If not you as
Mm-hmm.
an organizer, people who are going to travel for you are going to do that. But yes,
Up to
the
some
efforts
extent,
have
the
been like
maximum.
up to, yes, the maximum that we could do, and my team is very aligned with this entire thought. So for me, that entire thought of doing a sustainable festival that came 7 years back was because I was part of Global Shipper, where one of the projects that we were working. So for me, one of the bigger learning was that even if not on a mass scale, in my personal capacity, how could I make a
Mm.
difference? So yes, that's how I think it helped me, and it's a fantastic program. If you are
Yeah.
hearing this, and if you are between your 20s and 30s, and if you feel that within your city you want to make a difference, see if
Mm-hmm.
you have a World Economic Forum Global Shipper chapter. If you have, do reach out to them, to the
Mm-hmm.
curator or someone, and tell them that you're interested. Probably next year they might take up your profile, and in
Mm-hmm.
case if you're interested, you get selected. That's a brownie point to be a part of a very esteemed organization that brings not just a mission but also very important values into you during a very important phase of being in mid 20s.
Yep, yep, yep. For sure, for sure. Such a valuable and enlightening answer for all of the listeners and for me as well. um,
Absolutely. I think if you have a chapter, you're based in which city? Super.
I'm in Calcutta.
Calcutta. Calcutta is a very active chapter for Global Shaper.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you want to reach out to them, you could use your music skills, your conversation skills,
Ha, ha,
your
ha.
podcast audiences,
Mm-hmm.
and probably try and see if you could make a larger difference to them.
Yes, yes. I would love to. I would love to. Thank you so much for telling me first and foremost. um, how do you see creativity, this word? How do you see this in other people, in your team, or you as yourself?
I think, see, creativity is not something just like passion. It's not something which is tangible. You can't go and say this person is creative. You
Mm.
can't go and say this person is passionate about it. We just use those words in a very wrong meaning. No
Yeah,
one
yeah.
can ever go out and say this person is more creative. This person is less creative. Creativity is
Mm-hmm.
something which is a flow of mind. It's flow of thoughts.
It's a zone.
It's a zone. It has more to do with being at right place, right time, and right thoughts rather than do with having great thoughts all the time. And also creativity is very overhyped. So for typically for me, I've always found that people who go into a extremely creative zone often produce products which only are limited to the similar kind of audiences which
Ah.
are like them. When you're trying to create something which is for masses, your
So no
your
scalability.
definition of of course. So, the definition of, I think, like I said, it's very intangible. There is no way of rightly measuring it, and because you can't measure it, you can't contain it. You'll always have
Mhm.
to. The way people will, if you think that great design is great creativity, I don't think so. Whenever people
Mhm.
enter IFP's office, they're like, "Wow, this is such a creative space." I'm like, "No, this is not a creative space. It's just a colorful space." You could
Ah.
also create such a colorful space. This
Ah.
is not created like this is a
It's
created space.
subjective.
Yes,
Ah.
more than subjected. It's a created space,
It's
but it's not
created
a
space.
creative
Okay.
space. Yes,
Ah.
it's something that I did with a lot of love and being in that zone, and hence it came out exactly the way I wanted. If
Mhm.
I was not in that zone, if I had not purposefully created it, it would have been a probably a very ordinary looking office.
Mhm.
That doesn't make me any less creative, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I think that's how we'll have to. A lot of us will have to, especially when we're talking about creator economy and all those things, we'll have to start redefining how we look at creativity. I probably most of the YouTubers that I follow are not people who are into creative zone, but they're creating. They're not
Ah.
creatively creating; they're just creating. And creativity
Mhm.
comes from the entire idea of keeping to create. Someone
Exactly. That
keeping on
want to
creating
create.
itself
Ah.
is want to create. I think that is largely one of the YouTuber I follow is called Captain Joe. You know,
Captain Joe.
Captain Joe does this airline aircraft videos, and I'm like crazy.
Mhm.
I'm like, I just have one notification subscribed in my entire YouTube. That's Captain Joe's topic,
Oh.
and Captain Joe creates great content which is really entertaining, and he does it
Mhm.
very differently. Is he a creative person? Most of people would say no, but the way he's been creating, I think for me, he would be a very creative person, because he
Mhm.
keeps creating great content in his zone in the way his audience wants regularly. So I think
Uh,
largely as a society, and that course correction will happen when we'll understand that hey, creativity is not about someone doing different things. It's just
hmm.
about someone continuously doing things
uh,
and then making a difference out of
Creating
it.
things,
So I
not
think
creativity.
largely it will go into that space. So
Hmm.
I typically hate the word creator now, because we've just started
It's a
swamping
buzzword
everyone
right now,
creator.
creator and
I
creator, creator.
tell people exactly like humans were always a creator.
Ah, ah.
The woodpecking bird is also a creator.
Everyone
You
is a
can't
creator. Ah.
say because if you didn't create, you wouldn't have survived as an individual or as a species. We could
Mm-hmm.
create our own food. We could create the wheel. We could,
Create a house in
create
which
our
we live.
shelters. We could create shelters. We are creating some of the best technology that should also
Mhm.
come under the purview. We should also call it creativity because right now we are more driven by creativity in technology than creativity in arts, right? So
Ah,
even that is
wow.
something that we should probably think about. So I think the limitation that creativity is to do with your artisticness is very different. Yes,
Mm.
a person could be artistic, then call it artistic. But
Mm.
a scientist could also be a creative because they could be
Yeah.
doing something which is going to probably be in their zone. Right? So I think
Mhm.
our definition of creativity needs to change.
Yes, exactly.
Thankfully, I have always heard creative word and I've been like, Acha, okay, I'm not a creative person for sure. Yes, that's how I have put myself into. I've been like,
Uh,
okay, if, I'd rather be called a creating person who will keep on creating different stuff, but not a creative person.
We'll keep creating and not tell us that we are creative. Our job is to
Ha, I
create.
don't think so. I'm creative. There are far more. If I have to go by traditional definition, there are far more creative people than me in the world. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I would want to put myself into that bucket. But yes, I keep on creating. Every few
Mm.
months, I'll do something. I'll create a Lego city. I'll create paintings. I'll create some new science experiment. I'll create my website. I'll create opportunities. I'll keep creating. I'll create an organization. And I think that's the gist of keeping creating. If you're in the right zone, you're just doing right stuff. You're not artistically creating, but you're still creating.
One thing is like by your words or experiences, correct me if I'm wrong. I can understand that like you were always a kind of a leader thinking person. You were always like, no, 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 I can do this. I want to
I
do this.
don't think so. I don't think so. I can call myself a leader thinking person.
Uh-huh.
Again, like I said, uh, the far more people who with much better leadership skills, much better,
Mm-hmm.
much better leader thinking persons that I look up to. So I think that probably I'm an average one. I think yes.
um, so how many people are IFP now?
They're now 52.
52
Like
people.
yes, yes.
What does it take to manage
It's
52 people?
headache, headache, and a lot of headache pills. Typically, I realized that managing people is not my set of skills or
Cup
not the
of
kind
tea.
of it's not my cup of tea. It's not the kind of work that I would want to do.
Mm.
So I am in a some days I have this weird thought that I want to become a freelancer. I don't want to work with people. Some days I just don't. I'm like, I don't need a team. Yeah, I don't because I think for me and for anyone who's in the media and the service industry, I think the number one skill that we need to have is the people management. And
Mm.
unfortunately, not all of us are skilled to be great at people management. I have never been.
Mm.
I've always been a person. You tell me to move the mountain, I'll do it myself. But you tell me to get a team and move a mountain, I'll be like, it is good.
It's
I'll of course get them, but I'll still enjoy it when I'm
uh,
or I'll enjoy it
bootstrapped.
when everyone is putting equal
Uh,
heart into making it happen. But if I have to push someone and say, hey, why are you not moving it, or why are you moving it more, or where are half the people who have not turned up? I don't think so. That's what I enjoy. You have to move a mountain collectively. Yeah, let's do it. Like let's become the
uh,
best people, devise the best plan to move a
Collective
mountain. But
effort.
हाँ और अदरवाइज अगर सबको कलेक्टिव एफर्ट नहीं करना then just give me the spade and I'll try and move it.
It will take time, but I'll do it myself.
I think that's whenever I speak to a lot of service industry entrepreneurs, I think this is one common thing that most people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
When, especially when your team starts growing, you spend more time in managing people than you spend in managing your work, and that's where the 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 tragedy happens in a way, or that's
Mm-hmm.
where the problem starts speaking, because ideally you should be growing your business. Someone should be managing people for you, and if
So
you start managing
separate
people, then who's growing
departments
the business?
and ideologies.
More than departments, I think it's more clear division of
Labor.
responsibilities between people. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
and I am right now in a phase where I am managing people more than I am growing business.
Oh.
So that becomes a tricky place to be. But I realize that I'm not the only one. I think everyone who's into IT, everyone who's into media,
Ah.
everyone who's into
Mhm.
service industry, everyone goes through this. Just a second, I'll just say.
Sure, sure, sure. Please, please.
Just a second.
Hmm.
I just have a call.
Sure, sure. Please, please.
Yes.
Yes. So probably last set of few questions, then I'll leave you free. Otherwise, you will be angry with me.
No, no,
uh,
completely fine. Yeah.
uh, what are the rising trends you see as an entrepreneur and as a visionary in the coming 5 to 10 years, where it's a lot of potential, lot of money to make for all the listeners who listen to this podcast? What would you like to say?
Oh, to be honest, I don't want to be throwing names like NFT and Web3 and all those spaces, because I know that those spaces, of course, will have their own life journey. But though they are very cool things to do, but not cool things to speak about. But I don't think so. I believe that they are going to be the next big things. Um, I See, I think we've reached to a point where anything that you are doing as an entrepreneur, if you're doing it great, there's an opportunity now for that market, right? So I just 2 days back, I met a person who creates window grills,
Okay.
but instead of creating one window grill at time, they automated the process. And suddenly, from being a 50, 70 lakh ka business that he took 10 years back from his father, he's suddenly become more than 45 crore ka business right now, because they automated and they started expanding,
Uh,
and now they're selling in more than 30
so
countries,
automation is the coming
XYZ.
trend.
Not automation. I'm just telling you that if you look at it from one point, you will be like, window
Mhm.
grill mein, what's the next big thing about window grill, right? It's like a tool which is going to be
Ha ha
present.
ha
But I think, how are you looking at it? From what perspective you look at it, and what change you bring into it? No one would have thought. Even his dad wouldn't have thought, being in that business for 30 years, that hey, someday my son will suddenly multiply the business by 900x. You know,
ha.
uh, because he said, this is very interesting. We have been creating individually, but assembly line is a new concept. Let's create it using an assembly line. Let's get the best machine and let's do it. Someone just bringing newer thoughts. So
Mm.
I think world is moving to a place where we are going to be. We have crossed that limit that something new will change the market. We have
Mm.
entered a place where saying that you'll have to be the best person, or you'll have to continuously evolve to make that difference. We can't expect next Facebook or next Google to suddenly come up and say, okay, AI is going to be a bigger thing, because all of those things which had to happen already happened till 2010. All those
Mm.
big technology things which had to happen, they've already made whatever difference. If you see last 10 years, technology wise, none of us as human generations, entire existence, civilization has not grown like the way we used to grow earlier.
Yeah.
Of course, we are bringing in
Mm-hmm.
technology which is now making things better. So I think
Mm.
where we are moving right now is not about making huge leaps and saying, okay, NFT is the next big thing. Let's everyone jump into NFT. No, but it's about saying that whatever you are doing, whatever field you are into, whatever humans have been doing for a long time, how do you put your skills, make it even more better, and that betterment will take you towards excellence. So I think
Ah.
collectively now, instead of chasing huge how do I put it, instead of chasing huge numbers, we are all going to chase huge excellence in smaller ways, and I think that is going to make much bigger difference. So all kinds of businesses, all kind of domains will evolve equally good when there are good people involved into it. You can't
Yeah.
go out and say that a particular domain is going to have a much bigger trend compared to a another
Mm-hmm.
domain. You have,
Mm-hmm.
say for example, if you're someone who's working in art space, media space, it has evolved. There is equal creator creation and publishing ecosystem. If you talk about healthcare, it has evolved. We can make healthcare better, but the evolution which was to happen has already happened. You take travel space, it's completely evolved. You take technology, it's been evolving, but of course it has reached a place where the basic evolution is done. Your
Mm-hmm.
phones changed from 1980s to 2015. Your phones changed drastically, but since
Yes.
last 7, 8, 10 years, your phones look all the same, because now you
Yeah.
could
So
also
it's a
only
linear
make
growth.
smaller changes. we have I think we have already come to the end of an exponential growth in
Mm-hmm.
most of the sectors, and now we are just going to see a much more linear growth which is going to happen
Mm-hmm.
from here onward. So no particular industry or sector or a topic or a technology that I feel is going to be life changing, or where you are going to make huge bucks. You might be doing whatever, but if you're going to do it using whatever resources you have in a neat manner, you're probably
Mm.
going to already make huge bucks out of it.
So to create value in a certain sense with your work and your product or service, whatever it is.
Yes. So value creation is going to become more individualistic rather than more collective. I think that's where we all are moving now.
I can repeat like that line once again. I really like that.
So value creation is going to become more individualistic rather than being collective. That's where all of us
Wow.
are moving now. So we'll be creating more values personally in whatever space we are. So, for example, so if this is a growth chart which is linear, we would try and deflect it towards being higher
Okay.
growth.
Mm.
But if the way technology suddenly came in and charts became like this, then way suddenly uh, changes happened in last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, which suddenly used to trip the graph into like this, is not going to happen anymore. You can't say
Mm.
that this thing is going to suddenly make you a millionaire, or being in this business is going to be best thing. You can be a logistics guy, you can be someone who's just manufacturing bulbs, but probably just making great bulbs consistently for a longer time with and updating yourself is what is going to make you the next big thing, not not driven by a particular sector.
That's the most. That's kind of one of the best answers I got till now. Among all the podcasts I had, this is one of the greatest answers I've had. What does a
Thanks,
normal
yeah.
like? Not like an what does normal day look like in the life of Ritam Bhatnagar?
My normal day is very simple. I wake up, there's a motivation to do exercise, then there is a demotivation, then eventually I already hit 8:30, so 8:30 I have to start working out, because 9:30 I have to send my updates to my fitness coach. So I have 1 hour in which I have to work out, make sure everything. And then typically I'm working from 10:30, 11 to 7:30, 8 o'clock. I go back home, and that is more of my me time. So I spend that time in my Lego work. Typically, I either some days I'm painting, either some days I'm coding, but that's my time where I'm creating. Either I'm creating a Lego town, or I'm creating a painting, or I'm creating a
Another
website, but
business.
I'm creating the, yeah, yeah. And typically post that, I think post dinner, my time is more of connection time. So I'll call up all my friends and family, and I'll make sure that I at least call one of my friend every day. So that's a kind of routine that I've been following since almost 10, 12 years now. So, and typically, if I'm calling someone after a long time, then the call goes on for 1.5 hours. If I'm calling someone after a week, then probably we have a 10-minute chat. And then I, of course, go for a walk. So my walk is my end of the day. So come back from walk, and then typically some Instagram scrolling, and then I go to sleep. So I think in a way, I currently feel it might be very wrong, and I might be in a very big bubble, is that I do a good justice in my life to my work and my personal hobbies and
Mhm.
my own growth,
Mhm.
and of course to my body and my health as well. But God only knows. I think in my head, I think I've been doing it good.
So typically, you work 10 to 12 hours a day for sure.
uh, if you consider office work as work, I work somewhere around 6.5, 7 hours a day. If you consider work as in work that I also do for myself, currently I'm designing my new home. So I also have been learning some architecture software, and then I call up the curtain wala and the furniture wala and all those things. But I've been very much involved into every architectural drawing and everything, and I've been learning CAD and all those things. So then, yes, if you call that work, then typically it would be somewhere around 10, 11 rough hours that I've been doing.
Wow.
But I don't feel that that is my
Yes,
work thing
yes,
as such.
yes, yes. That's enjoyable, right?
That enjoyable. Even the office part is enjoyable. Not that it's not
Hmm.
enjoyable. I just think one is more community driven. So whatever we have been doing at ISP, of course, affects us, but also affects community at large. And one is more personal driven. So whatever I do at my home only affects me at the end. So I think that's how I would divide it equally.
Wow. Uh, Three tips for all young professionals looking to do something creative or do something out of the box rather than just being an engineer, doctor, everything.
Okay. Instead, I'll say three tips for young professionals who are looking to doing something,
Yeah, yeah.
not out of the box, not creative.
Okay, okay.
Uh, I would suggest skill up. Number one thing, learn as many things in your free time as you can. You are always going to run out of things that you have learned from the past, and new skilling up is what is going to make all the difference. And a lot of people don't skill up. They think that with the flow of their life, they'll keep on learning new things, and typically they expect, okay, I'm 20. By the time I turn 30, I would have learned X, Y, and Z. But if you keep on skilling up, say probably learn one new skill every 3 months or every month, that is going to take you a long way, because by the time you turn 30, you would have learned at least 50 new skills. And
Mhm.
that's not a small thing. Having 50 new
Yes.
skills prepares your neurons in multiple directions. So your brain doesn't have a single directional growth, but has a multi-directional growth. So I
Mhm.
think that is the number one thing. The second is uh, keep a long-term vision to what you are wanting to do. I hate the way a lot of people think about, or they have a very short-term vision about things. Say they think of, say for example, they think of their job as something that they need to do for 2 years, and then they'll jump to another one. And similarly, they think of everything from a very small 1 year, 2 year, few months perspective, right? No one thinks of things from a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year perspective.
Mhm.
Doing something, there is an immense power that compounding has. Doing something
Compounding.
continuously for yeah, yeah. So doing something continuously at one single place for continuous number of years will teach you much more than doing multiple things at multiple different places.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to become a master of one or master of none? Jack of all trades, everyone is going to be. So I would say you should be jack of all trades and master of one, instead of
One.
becoming jack of all trades and master of none. So eventually, most people end up becoming master of none. So they know a lot of things scattered, but those things, when they come together, don't help them achieve any life goal.
Uh,
So that is one of the things. So you should, I think, always have a long-term vision. When if things don't align with your vision, don't join there, don't work there. But if they align, then make sure that you are also contributing in taking that vision to the next level, because visions also need to evolve like humans, right?
mm.
Uh, and the third thing would be always have at least one hobby. Hobbies are a very undermined thing. The moment we are out of our schools, the first word that we pick up and throw into trash is hobby. We typically we think that hobbies are for kids. Typically, we
Uh-huh.
want a life which is more professional, more mature. But uh, hobbies are what will keep you sane. Hobbies are
Yes.
what will make you time travel. Hobbies are what will connect
We'll
you
stick you to
back
the
to things
roots.
that they'll stick you to the roots. So hobbies are a very important part of human evolution. You know, typically, it's not that you should compromise your work for following your hobby, but uh, you should not even compromise your hobby for following your work. It's a
So
very
that's a
simple equation.
balance.
So
Mhm.
there needs to be a balance. I'm not saying hobby needs to take 5 hours a day. A hobby could also take 10 minutes a day, or it could just take 1 hour a month. But it needs to happen to keep a lot of your sanity in check. So
Yeah.
I think that is something. So people
I love
who
that.
have,
Keep your sanity in check.
uh, which is very very much needed in the kind of space we are entering now, the
Mhm.
next 15, 20, 30 years, with technology not having a kind of the technology not being built with humans in favor right now. We're going to soon end up in a space which is going to be a lot of overload for our brains. So hobbies are
Mhm.
going to be that monotony breaker, clutter breaking things, that so
Uh,
I think
Detoxification
that's where
things.
Yeah, you can put a purpose to it, saying that it is going to help you detox. But largely, hobbies are going to be a thing. I don't have a word for it of how they're going to help you, and hence I
Mhm.
said they're just going to keep you sane. How much
Same.
sane? Are they going to detoxify you? Are they going to guide you? Are they going to become the light of your road? You don't know
Mhm.
how it's going to help. I've seen people who have made their hobbies into some of the best businesses. I've seen people who have kept hobbies throughout their life and they're very happy with their hobby and they've retired and they've continued their hobby. And for me, it runs in my family. So, I just think that I'm always going to have a hobby which is going to be there. Probably multiple hobbies, which is fine. And weekends are for that, right? Weekends are typically
Yes.
your spaces for yourself, and hobby is going to give you that
Mhm.
me time, which most of us lack these days.
Yes, exactly. This is my comfort. This is what I want to do. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Wow.
For example, when I want to take up something which I love doing as a hobby, I have to put across my phone for those couple of hours. I have to get involved. I have to put focus into it. And I think one of the biggest, at least superpower, I think I have got is that I can focus on things for a really long time. And
Hmm.
that has happened only because of hobbies. Otherwise,
Hmm.
I remember when I also went through a period where my hobbies took a back seat, and I remember I used to have all kind of focus issues. Continuously checking Instagram and then email and then typing and then calling up people and then trying to do 20 things. And then I realized that's not how it is. Hobbies make you realize that you need to do one thing perfectly while you are involved into it, and then you
Yeah.
start falling in love with those things also after a point of time.
Well, how many enlightening answers will you give? Like, come on, now tell me.
Uh, I'm done with, I think, every cool thing that I could flex around.
Probably the last rapid fire question for you. Are you a follower or a fan of speed or perfection?
Perfection.
Perfection.
I try to, of course, achieve perfection without compromising on speed, but of course, the speed gets compromised. But I have realized that most of the times I end up getting neither perfection nor speed. So, and I've been hating myself really for that because that realization happened a couple of months back. And ever since then, it's been one thing that keeps me very sleepless. I'm like, hey, neither I'm fast, neither I'm perfect, though I'm trying to chase one of them. So, what should I do? Should I be more fast and not look at perfection at all, or should I be more perfect and not look at speed? I don't know how am I going to crack it. So, I am a fan of perfection, but I've not been able to achieve perfection. Or probably, I think my definition of perfection is way too strict than how it should be. So, I don't know what the thing is. It's an infinite question. My brain goes
Work in
into that zone
progress.
after 11 years. It's a work in progress. Yes.
Wow, what a fantastic conversation. Once again, like, thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart for joining and like taking some valuable time out of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Suparna. I think you had great questions to ask.
Thank you.
Also, this took me down to the entire memory lane because the entire touring talkies thing that I was sharing with you is something that I'd completely forgotten. So, not that I'd forgotten, just that I think I haven't mentioned it for the longest time ever. So, I think thank you so much for asking the right kind of
Absolutely,
questions.
absolutely. My pleasure, man. Keep building businesses, keep building new creative things. Okay, keep creating new things. I've corrected myself. Keep creating new things and keep inspiring a lot of people. Once again, like, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks. All pleasure is mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bye bye.
Bye. See you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Welcome.